In 2010, a federal judge in Milwaukee quietly approved a $65 million settlement that every major American lawnmower brand had spent 16 years trying to avoid. Why did the company that made most of the engines in your garage file for bankruptcy exactly 10 years later? And why does a modern mower at Home Depot today refuse to tell you its horsepower, showing you torque numbers or engine displacement instead? We are going to expose the coordinated fraud that every brand signed on to, name the one manufacturer whose own federal filings destroyed the entire industry's defense, and show you the 3 numbers you should actually be checking before you hand over a single dollar for a new mower. If you walked into a Home Depot or a Sears in 2006 and looked at the lawnmower aisle, you were almost certainly looking at an illusion. You saw Craftsman, John Deere, Toro, Husqvarna, Cub Cadet, Troy-Bilt, Snapper, Poulan, and Weed Eater. You saw a row of engines stamped 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and 6.75 horsepower, each one priced a little higher than the last. And you assumed that when you paid $50 more for the higher number, you were getting a stronger mower. That assumption was false. In most cases, the engine inside the higher price machine was literally identical to the cheaper one, only the sticker changed. This was not a mistake by one rogue employee or one shady brand. From January of 1994 through April of 2010, nearly every major engine maker and retailer in the United States was doing it. The case that proved it is called MDL 1999, and when it finally settled, 65 class action lawsuits were consolidated into a single federal proceeding in the Eastern District of Wisconsin. Sears, John Deere, Toro, Husqvarna, Briggs and Stratton, Tecumseh, Kohler, Kawasaki, Honda, and MTD were all named. And what the court filings revealed was not sloppy marketing. It was a coordinated system for lying to customers at industrial scale. The fraud was not a bug in the system. It was written directly into the system the industry used to measure itself. Before 1990, small engines in the United States were generally rated in what is called net horsepower. Net horsepower means the engine is tested with all the real parts attached that you, the customer, actually need to use it. The muffler is on. The air filter is on. The governor that keeps the engine from tearing itself apart is on. The number on the sticker reflects what the machine will actually do in your yard. Then, around 1990, the industry quietly migrated to a different standard called SAEJ 1995. This one measures what is called gross horsepower. Gross horsepower means the engine is tested stripped down in a laboratory. The muffler often comes off. The air filter comes off. The governor is disabled. The ambient temperature and humidity are controlled. The fuel is premium. The number you get out of this test is the theoretical maximum the engine could produce if you ran it naked on a test bench in perfect conditions. No customer has ever operated a lawnmower under those conditions. Then came a second standard, SAEJ 1940, that allowed the production engine to actually deliver as little as 85% of its rated number and still be sold at that rating. Stack the two standards together, and you have a legal path to inflate the label by roughly 15% on top of an already optimistic laboratory fantasy. And the plaintiffs alleged this stacking was not an accident. They named a group inside the Outdoor Power Equipment Institute called the Power Labeling Task Force, and they pointed to a memo dated around July 10th of 2001 that they said circulated uniform methods for misrepresenting the testing. In plain English, the plaintiffs accused the industry of agreeing on a shared lie, and this was not the first time a regulator had caught them. In 2006, 4 years before the federal case settled, the Connecticut Attorney General forced Briggs and Stratton and MTD to refund customers over a specific batch of Yardman tractors labeled 18.5 horsepower that actually produced 16. That settlement was $250,000, and covered only 3,948 units. It got almost no national press. The industry saw it, paid it, and kept selling. Here is the single number that collapsed their entire defense. Plaintiffs allege that Briggs Stratton sold one of its engines to consumers under a sticker that read 6.75 horsepower. That same engine, when the same company reported it to the Environmental Protection Agency for emissions compliance, was listed at 3.6 horsepower. An 88% overstatement documented inside the company's own federal filings. And the man who argued this case, lead plaintiff's counsel Vincent E. Sades, gave a quote to the Washington Post in April of 2010 that should be printed on every mower box ever made. He said 4.5 horsepower, 5, 5.5, 6.75. They are all the exact same engine. The price would go up with each one of those fictitious stickers. He was describing the business model. A customer who paid $50 or $100 more for a mower advertised at 6.75 horsepower over one advertised at 5.5 was not paying for a stronger engine. He was paying for ink. The price premium was the scam, but it gets worse. Because while this was happening, the companies kept selling. Industry data put American mower sales at roughly 6 million units per year during the class period. Across 16 years, that is a universe of roughly 90 to 100 million affected engines. When Briggs Stratton spokeswoman Laura Tim was asked to respond, she gave the quote that tells you everything. She said, quote, "We never received a phone call from a consumer telling us that our engines did not provide the power they were looking for," end quote. Of course, no one called. Consumers did not have an engineering dynamometer in their garage. They trusted the sticker. That was the whole point. And the handful that did complain were told correctly that the engine met its advertised rating because the rating had been defined by the industry itself to mean something almost no one understood. This was the genius and the evil of it. The number on the box was not false. It was just meaningless. You could not sue on a lie because technically, inside the language of SAEJ 1995, it was not a lie. It took 65 consolidated lawsuits and a federal multi-district litigation to expose that the meaninglessness was the point. So what happened to the companies that paid the settlement? This is where the story gets genuinely strange. The cash settlement was about $65 million. Class members could claim up to $35 per walk behind mower and up to $75 per riding mower. The claims administrator mailed roughly 23 million postcards to identifiable buyers. Vincent E. Sades later estimated that only about 340,000 claims were actually filed. That is a take rate of roughly 1.5%. A 16-year coordinated pricing fraud against tens of millions of American households ended with roughly 1 in 70 affected consumers collecting a check for the price of a small pizza. No company admitted wrongdoing. The Federal Trade Commission did not file a parallel action. The Department of Justice did not open a criminal case, and the mainstream press largely ignored it. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel's Rick Barrett broke most of the original reporting. The Washington Post ran a column by John Kelly, but the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the network Evening News functionally walked past a $65 million consumer fraud settlement affecting the most common power tool in America. The industry was allowed to quietly remove horsepower numbers from most walk-behind mowers altogether, replace them with torque in foot-pounds, or just list cubic centimeters of displacement. If you buy a Briggs Stratton mower today and wonder why the label reads something like 8.75 gross torque instead of a horsepower figure, you now know the answer. That label is scar tissue. And then the companies themselves started to disappear. Tecumseh, one of the named defendants, shut down its engine manufacturing on December 15th of 2008. Briggs Stratton filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy on July 20th of 2020 and was bought out of bankruptcy by a New York private equity firm called KPS Capital Partners for about $550 million, shedding roughly $900 million in legacy obligations. MTD Products, which made Cub Cadet, Troy-built, and most Craftsman outdoor equipment, was fully acquired by Stanley Black & Decker in December of 2021 for $1.6 billion. Kohler spun off its engine business to Platinum Equity in May of 2024. The defendants that collectively paid the largest consumer horsepower fraud settlement in American history as corporate entities no longer exist in the form that was sued. The debt was washed. The brand names moved on. The customers kept buying. So what do you actually do in 2026 if you need a mower and you refuse to be lied to again? There are 3 numbers that matter, and only 3. First, engine displacement in cubic centimeters. A typical walk-behind engine should be roughly 140 to 190 cubic centimeters. A residential riding mower, roughly 400 to 700 cubic centimeters. Displacement is a physical measurement. You cannot bench test it into existence. Second, the engine series, not the mower brand. Look for commercial-grade series like Honda GX, Kawasaki FX, or Kohler Command Pro. Skip the consumer-grade equivalents like Honda, GC, Kawasaki FR, and the old Kohler Courage. Third, check who actually built the engine, because the name on the deck almost never tells you. A Craftsman, Troy-Bilt, or Cub Cadet is probably an MTD product now owned by Stanley Black & Decker. A Poulan or Weed Eater is Husqvarna. Every major American mower brand lied for 16 years, and when the lawsuit came, they settled for pennies, admitted nothing, and moved on. Do not trust the sticker. Check the displacement, check the series, check the lineage. If you found this investigation useful, hit subscribe for more stories on the industries that are quietly taking your money and hoping you never read the fine print.